Hello and welcome to this, the second in our Marketing Data 101 series. And for those of you that have seen the first video of the series already, and if you haven't, you should go and watch it after this one, you'll have heard us talk about data maturity, and you'll have heard us talk about some tools, techniques, and technologies that you can use and that maybe you are using already to give you various different levels of maturity within your data and analytics journey. And we're going to start delving into those individually in a little bit more detail over the forthcoming videos within this series. And today specifically, we're going to talk about cookie consent and consent mode. We've already got some videos on consent mode on the channel, and I'd advise you to check them out separately as well. But we're going to delve a bit more into the detail today. And Tommy's going to talk you through cookie consent in a little bit more detail. And you probably don't want to hear me talk about it because it's not something that I talk about that often. So I'm going to pass over to Tommy now.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, and welcome again to your second episode. And yeah, we're going to talk about cookie consent, and we'll also. I know we've kind of already mentioned consent mode, but I think it's important that we should ideally we should have started with cookie consent before doing consent mode, but because of that deadline, we kind of had to jump straight to consent mode because of the March 6th deadline. So we'll put them together because they are a pairing. So and we'll talk about how they both work together. So yeah, let's go on. So yeah, as it is second episode, and then obviously the week after we'll do measurement strategy. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. So why do we need to manage cookie consent on our websites and apps? So I guess most of us are familiar. Obviously, hopefully you can tell from our accents, we're from the UK. So GDPR, it's been around for sort of quite a long time now. It's kind of got introduced, I think, either was it 2018, 2016. My dates are never too good, but it's been a while. It's been around for a while. I've been doing setups at least since 2019 in terms of cookie consent. So and making sure tracking respects the banners and actually works with together with it. And that's obviously one we know, but there are tons of other ones by region. Brazil have their own one, South Africa have their own one. United States actually do have legislations, but at state level and only on some states, not all states. So definitely, if you're in the US, start looking into that, because I know a lot of people just assume the US are kind of safe from it. Fundamentally, yeah, that you do need to get these in place. Otherwise, you could be risk at fines. GDPR, I think, is the ICO, which essentially is up to 4% of your revenue if you get caught. So yeah, definitely one not to chance. So yeah, the others I'm not too well adverse in what the consequences of not having it in, but definitely read up on that. So, question: how do we actually deploy cookie consent on our sort of website? I guess you can either build your own. I mean, a cookie consent is kind of comprised of different things. I guess it's comprised of actual banner, which most of us have gone on a website. We see a pop up, or maybe it's maybe not a pop up. It's just at the bottom bit of the bar, like a non-intrusive sort of banner style, and it says something along cookies, and you can accept or reject. But also there are things like data policy pages or cookie policy pages. You know, there's a bit of fine line. Some people like to put their cookie policies within their data policies, but arguably you should keep them quite separate. So yeah, you've got those two elements, and it's like, how do we actually deploy these? It's like you can do it yourself, but actually customize your own banner, and get your developers to do all of that, and do the write up yourself, and get your developers do all the HTML, CSS for it, and just write it all out manually through their dev work. We recommend going with a proper third party CMP that's well recognized in the industry. They sort of keep their, obviously it's a tool. Most of them you have to pay something, some sort of monthly subscription, but some are pretty much for free, or some are potentially paid depending how many pages you've got on your website. For example, CookieBot is free up to a certain amount of pages, and then if you go above that, then you have to pay, or you can go straight to premium to get extra benefits. They've obviously got all their different prices and all their different solutions. These are 6 that I know quite well. I know that work. OneTrust and CookieBot are like my favorite. OneTrust being quite more expensive. They won't even tell you your pricing, but if you want to be secure, if you're talking about security and data governance, OneTrust is the best in the industry. But it's you would have to have your own team to sort of like basically deal with it and manage it. It's super complex, but obviously if you want that level of security and level of granularity and all the different solutions that OneTrust offers, then you can go for that. Other than that, you've got more sort of different solutions. I personally like CookieBot. I think it works really, really well, but I know Cookie Yes is also very, very good.
One question I can imagine our viewers that are looking at the video right now, probably looking at a lot of the technologies here, they're probably not 100% familiar with them. I'm sure some of them are, but also things like CMSs and CMPs. I reckon that there's going to be a few people watching that are thinking, what's a CMS? What's a CMP? So can you tell us a little bit more?
Absolutely. So yeah, so CMS is content management system. So just a way, it's tools like WordPresses and stuff like that that can essentially build your website. They kind of can be like arguably website builders, but also just content. Yeah, literally manage your content. So there's a bit of disparity between a website builder and content management system. I guess developer would be able to tell you a lot better than what I've just put it at, but essentially, yeah, that's what it kind of means from a top line perspective. CMP just stands for Consent Management Platform, and that's the OneTrust, the cookie bots. These are just tools that help you manage your consent, essentially. So yeah, and they're third parties which you can invest in to help with ease of deployment, etc.
Great. I think that's the thing with marketing as well. There's so many acronyms, and there's most of them seem to be three-letter acronyms as well. I think a marketer loves a little three-letter acronym, and hopefully we can demystify most of those as we go through this. But I shall let you carry on and tell us more about cookies.
Perfect. So how do we become cookie compliant? So I guess there are, like I kind of mentioned, you need to deploy a cookie banner and also have a cookie policy. That's why I recommend third-party cookie management platforms, because they sort of have pre-built templates. They've done the research. They're pretty well versed in it. You don't have to learn these differences because yeah, it does get quite complicated. And then within your cookie policy pages, again, it could differentiate per sort of region as well. So just have a check that you've done that. For example, GDPR, they recommend not only saying wording, but also having a list of all your cookies, but also categorize them based on if they're necessary, functional, marketing, analytics, and put them in correct categorization, but also have like a tabular format so it looks really visible. Descriptions, how long they are, are they first party or the third party, that sort of information. So there's a lot of legal things you need to understand per sort of region or per type of legislation that you're trying to achieve on your website. So yeah. And then finally, the one I'd say is the biggest problem of them all. I think I've checked a lot of websites in my time, and even with consent mode 2 updates that come around the corner, a lot of websites are still not compliant because they might have a cookie banner, they might have a cookie policy. I'm not going to say if the cookie banner or cookie policy or the wording's good. I'm not a legal expert in that sort of field. I'm a tracking expert. I can only make sure your tracking works with your banners, etc. But yeah, the other thing is you actually have to make sure like your banner works functionally in terms of stopping your sort of marketing and analytics and any other uh, script on your site from deploying certain cookies based on what you've stated in both your banner and cookie policies. So that's really, really crucial. And this we'll go how to deal with that. But I think that's where people get confused, where they've deployed the cookie banner and they've just assumed that they're compliant. And it's like, it looks pretty, and actually, in a lot of cases, it doesn't look very pretty. Maybe because they're not using a good third-party CMP, or like they're using a cheap CMS plugin. But it's fine, it's there, but it's not actually doing anything. You're still deploying cookies on your website, and not respecting users' consent. So obviously, in our case, the ICO were to see that, they would not be too happy. So but not to worry, we will go through how to check that as well later. But that is a very third and important point as well. So that's essentially how to become. So there is a bit of work there, and now we're going to cover how, like the final point is how do we actually block that, like our analytics scripts, our it could even be functional scripts to some degree, like how do we know what's the differences and what we need to do, or our marketing pixels, like how do we make sure it works with our consent management, like our cookie banners, etc.? How do we make sure it's well adversed and it's actually blocking and respecting users' choices? So I mentioned different ways. So if you had a custom banner, decide to do it yourself, get your developers to make it look pretty in the designs and stuff. You don't want to work with a third party, that's absolutely fine. The limitation with that is you don't get auto cookie blocking. So the only way you can sort of tackle it is essentially if you've got Google Tag Manager primarily, hopefully you have that. To manage your tags, you're going to need to tell your developers to put custom data layers or first party cookie, when like a user interacts with a banner and states what they've selected, and essentially do some manual work in GTM to ensure it blocks it until users click accept cookies or accept a specific cookie. So there's a lot of work, and obviously us as specialists, we know how to do that. But yeah, we get it's quite difficult to sort of navigate around. That's why sometimes using a third party tool might be an easier solution. Now, with third-party CMPs, there are actually different options. So I briefly mentioned auto cookie blocking. So a lot of these third-party consent management platforms, they have auto cookie blocking solutions that come with their JavaScript that they deploy. Once you've deployed that script on their site, they can essentially deploy this solution, and because you've already listed within the tool all the different categorization of cookies where they fall based on the different functionalities. So you might have said X cookies are functional, X cookies are analytics, X cookies are marketing. Regardless of the type of banner you decide to put in place, it will ensure, well, I'd say it will ensure it will if you deployed it correctly, it will basically block any scripts from running fully and deploying cookies until you've accepted X cookies. So it's a great solution. However, it has its limits and it can break. And it can actually break your whole website if you're not careful. So this is why I'd say be careful with it, and that's why I'm going to go through the different options. So option one, let's ignore auto cookie blocking. Like for now, you've deployed the script on your website to deploy the banner, etc. If you've got Google Tag Manager, you can seamlessly, without any custom code for your developers, custom data layer code that your developers will need to deploy on the website, the third-party CMP will deploy this for you really seamlessly. So it will put custom logic based on when a user interacts, even pre-banner interaction. So you can, I wouldn't say easily, it's not easy, anything to do in Google Tag Manager, but a bit more easier than if you had a custom banner. You can manage your tags with your triggers based on user consent. Option two, and again, if available, is auto cookie blocking solution. You can actually do that entirely, and that means it will block also your Google Tag Manager from loading certain scripts, or even block it entirely, depending on the type of banner you've got and depending on the solution. And yeah, that's okay, but I've noticed that's caused a lot of data problems. It's relying too much on automation, and I think particularly marketing and analytics cookies are really important, and I think having that control is quite vital. I've seen it break tracking just because of a silly dev change, and it took ages to debug it because it's not very easily debuggable if it does break. So in my opinion, option three, which I'm going to talk about, it's not totally relying on auto cookie blocking, but it's a combination of the two. And I think where where you shouldn't be blocking is your Google Tag Manager. Your Google Tag Manager, like I said, it deploys all the custom data layers for you, so really seamlessly. And they got really good guides as well to follow, so you can kind of follow those through how to do it per like third-party CMP. I kind of can do it because I've worked a lot of different ones, but even if you haven't, they've got such great developer guides and how to do stuff in the Google Tag Manager, if you want to go down that route. So what you can do if you want both, you can actually mark up your Google Tag Manager script to say ignore this script with your auto cookie blocking solution, but carry on with the rest essentially. So your hard coded scripts will be covered by the auto cookie blocking solution, but your tag manager, you are controlling it. And I think that's the best way to go if you can afford to do so. How do I check that I'm cookie compliant? So you can use the first method, I guess, is there's some tools like CookieBot. User-Centrics is owned by CookieBot, just a clarification. But they've got their own tool there. I can't really say how good it is. I personally like to check it myself, and I'll show you that, and that's method 2. So we're going to go on to Datacove website, and I'll quickly show you one method of checking briefly if you're going to do one example page. Let me
It's
go.
like the moment of truth for us, isn't it, really?
Yeah, perfect. There we go. Let's exit that. So if you go to your website, so in this case we're going on the Datacove's website. So little test here, Jeremy. No pressure.
I know. I'm feeling a bit nervous, to be honest.
But brilliant. I'm just going to say one little tip is this edit cookie tools, absolutely fantastic. So I'll just show you an example what it can do. So if I accept tool, not only tells you a list of cookies, but which I don't really want to rely on, I'll show you another technique to actually review your list. But more so you can keep repopping your banner without constantly going into your browser history, deleting everything, coming back. You can simply do this and reload, and your banner will come up. I do have to say some third-party tools, they do tend to store things, maybe local storage and things. So if you notice that doesn't work, it's not because the tool doesn't work, it's just because they do things a little bit deeper. So you might have to delete your browser or go in the console and delete your local storage. But anyway, let's just quickly review the cookies. So yeah, essentially you can come to, if you left click and click inspect, you've got this DevTools console. And essentially here you can click on application, and then under storage you have cookies, so you can come here and check what's going on. Just a note, but it's fine. That is it's just because essentially you need to fully clear. Like the problem with using this tool, it kind of like temporary clears it just enough to get the banner up, but it doesn't fully like clear your cookies. But if you were to like fully clear your cookies from your browser, it's just a caching issue essentially. So that's why that was happening. But if we actually now click reload, we can see that we've got this cookie law info, and I think cookie law is part of cookie yes. So I'm fairly confident that's the tool Datacove is using. And in essence, this just checks your cookies. So check here at this stage. I haven't even interacted with the banner. What cookies have I got? Have I got any marketing or analytics cookies? That shouldn't be happening. Remember, I mean, this is GDPR anyway, that you can have necessary cookies or functional cookies. So these would be okay because this is for the third-party tool we're using to help us determine to block other things. So they're actually okay, like they're okay cookies to deploy. They're considered necessary for the website, because how would we even block all our marketing and analytics cookies? We need some sort of solution in place to help us do that. As long as it doesn't collect personal identifiable information or anything sensitive, generally, and it's generally for functionality, it's absolutely fine. Now you go through all the different scenarios. So I'm just gonna sort of click. Let me just click over. If I now click accept cookies, again, we can see there's a new list of cookies that kind of arose, including Google Analytics. So that's all good. Like already just from a top check, like I already say, like Datacove is on the compliance side. I guess now it's like, what type of method are they using? Yeah, exactly, Jeremy. What type? It could be that they're controlling it through Tag Manager. So that could be one way. But again, they could be using the auto cookie blocking solution that probably Cookie Yes also has. So, there's different ways. That's a bit harder to say. There's nothing that's going to scream at you. I think that's through testing. You'll probably go in GTM preview mode. If your preview mode is not even loading pre-banner interaction, that's a good sign that it's blocking the whole tag manager from loading till you interact with the banner. And yeah, they're using that solution. But I just wanted to show you that. Go through, do these tests, test accept, test reject. When you've got different domains per market, only users coming in from that one market to that one domain, you can easily deploy the region's data laws by the type of cookie banner you need to display to them, because it's one script, or your developers, even if they custom build it, it's like one banner. You've made sure the buttons and everything are like matching to that data law. You're respecting all that law in all its ways and shapes quite easily. Well, I'd say quite easily. Again, it's always going to be complex when it's cookie consent. But if you've got one domain, you can still do multi-region. It's not impossible, but I think it's near impossible if you do a custom banner. I think at that point you would have to use a third party, and they've got really good solutions to deploy multiple different legislations depending where the user's IP address is from. So it's really smart, it's really good. So if you do have that, you need to go with a third party. So we've kind of got up to cookie compliance. I just wanted to touch on briefly multi-region. So now I just want to touch upon consent mode, because we talked about cookie consent, which is great, but consent mode is Google's tech. And we talked about this already in detail in another episode, which will be in a link as well below, so you can have a look at that. I don't want to go too much into detail of it, but just more want to touch upon it. Um, but they've obviously had this technology around for quite a long time, and the main reason before consent mode version 2 came about was to essentially capture non-consented users in a more privacy centric way by sending it to their cookieless servers. That's what we call advanced. Well, that's now what we call advanced consent mode. Before, it was only really one consent mode. It was just because of the forcefulness of consent mode version 2, they had to kind of split it as part of it. But yeah, it's really important that this goes in tangent with your cookie consent. So, know the differences between basic and advanced is going to be really important. Know if you've got a custom banner, you're going to have to deploy all the consent mode API signals yourself. You're going to have to get your developers to do that. If you're using a third party, have a look. Google has a list of how well integrated it is with consent mode. So just something to be wary of, depending if you're custom or if you're using a third party. Third party is a lot more easier. It's not perfect. Don't think it's a perfect solution. I've seen some people just deploy it and assumed it's ready and done, and it's not. So you do sometimes have to do additional stuff. It depends what you want out of it. So yeah, definitely read between basic and advanced. So basic, like I said, just only tracks, you only sending Google hits when users consent. And as well as in addition with that, you're just sending the signals so that Google knows that you've said that they have consented. So that if you're in the UK and EEA now, you can do remarketing and things like that. With advanced, obviously, you're also trying to capture those non-consented users using Google solution by cookieless server. So it doesn't deploy a cookie on the website. It goes straight to their cookieless servers to get processed. And they're then modeled, which we'll talk about modeling now. And that's behavioral and conversion modeling. But it's not all good news for everyone, I'm afraid. And that's why I wanted to be quite specific, because I think a lot of people sell it too quickly and don't factor in different clients of different sizes. So we need to sort of factor that in. So what do I mean by that? So for sort of modeling, and I won't go into detail what the modeling looks like. So, from a conversion modeling and behavioral modeling, what does that mean? There's a lot of documents, and we'll give you all the details in the link below, so you can have like a read through. And if you've got questions, we'll be happy to help out with the comments section as well. But there are a lot of prerequisites, so it's not for everyone. Like if you want Google Ads conversion modeling, for example, with consent mode, so you've got an advanced consent mode, you want to not activate, get the benefits of the conversion modeling. So Google will say you need a minimum of 700 clicks, like over a 7-day period per day. So that's quite a lot. You've got to invest quite a decent amount in your Google Ads to probably get that amount. I haven't done PPC in a while, to be fair. It's been about 3-4 years, but I know I've seen quite a lot of clients that have different setups, and I've already seen a fair few that obviously are spending even a couple grand a month, and it's probably not enough to get 700 clicks a day. They're more like 300-400 clicks. So you're probably gonna have to spend 4 or 5 grand a month minimum. I mean, that depends on your CPCs, and that means cost per clicks. But yeah, just something to be wary of. Don't feel like someone's selling it. Check before, you want to invest in advanced consent mode, because you might not even be eligible for it. Behavioral modeling in GA4. Again, we'll give details in the description of what that means, so you can feel free to have a read. But again, you need at least 1,000 events per day with analytic storage, which is a consent mode consent signal set to denied for at least 7 days. So that's a fair amount, to be fair. And the second part to that is, and this is basically Google's way of saying, for us to do good modeling of the data using our machine learning techniques and stuff, we need to have enough observed data. So observed in this case will be consented data, so that we can then signal to the non-consented data what that would look like for those non-consented hits. So they recommend at least another 1,000 daily users as well per day. So sending events of analytics storage being granted, that means they've consented essentially for at least 7 days. And if you do have advanced consent mode, you may not see the benefits for at least, you know, a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So that's just something we've noticed in the industry, and something I just wanted to add here, because I think a lot of people go, oh, get advanced consent mode, it's brilliant, and it's like all this, you know, it's going to save you, and it's like yes, and sometimes no, you know. But I also have to add as well, these are the thresholds at the moment. Like Google have changed even like other, they use, you know, for example, data-driven attribution modeling within your Google Ads or Google Analytics. There used to be pretty high thresholds for that, but they kept reducing it over time. So again, this might get reduced over time. In my opinion, I don't think that's good, because you know, you do need data. You need to feed it data, right, to sort of give it an accurate what it's telling you. So but just something to be wary of, and definitely keep an eye on if they do reduce the thresholds. So I don't think it'll be fixed forever like this. But yeah,
That's great. Well, brilliant. Well, I love listening to you talking through all of these things, Tommy, because I can just get here, I can sit here and listen. I actually get to learn quite a lot from it as well. So I think if I'm learning a lot, I know the people watching are learning a lot. As we always say with these things, if there's something in here that you want to delve into in a little bit more detail, you want some support, you want some assistance, you know where you can get in touch with us. All of our socials are below. You can come and find us. You can drop us an email, drop us a comment in the comment section below as well, and we'll be quite happy to get in touch and talk more. As you're probably beginning to understand, we can talk about these things, you know, all day and probably all night as well, and we're quite happy to assist. But I think seeing these, just from my perspective, always makes me excited about the next installment. So I'm hoping that everybody watching is equally as excited about the next installment. I think we're talking about strategies, I think we said. So I'm really excited to delve into that one in a bit more detail. Until then, if you've got any questions or comments, do get in touch. We'll see you very soon.
perfect. Thank you, everyone.